Hi, I'm Matt Meyer. I noticed that James Eccles had a Syntex tip of the day, and they're really great, but there wasn't a lot of background on how to actually execute these. So I'm creating a series of videos to explain how to execute James's tips of the day. Let's get started.
In this video, we're looking at what happens after something has been processed by Syntex. Many times you need to do some data cleanup, or there is something that needs to happen directly after you have processed a document. You're doing something with the metadata that you've extracted. So how do we do that? This is completed with a Power Automate action. So what we have here is our library that has a Syntex model deployed to it. And you can see we've got a content type, we've got our collection name, we've got all kinds of stuff in here that's been extracted from our documents. And what we want to do is maybe we want to do some data validation after this. So if you take a look here, the student last name column here, they have a comma after each one. So what I'll want to do is I'll want to run a flow after this has been processed to remove that comma. So what I do here is I'm looking for a very specific trigger that I can use. So I can go to make.powerautomate.com. And the way that I like to do this, first and foremost, guys, make sure that your environment is correct. You don't want to be creating this in default environment if your default environment doesn't allow these kind of things. So first of all, make sure you're in the right environment before you get going here. That said, what I like to do here is I like to create solutions for things. This is the more professional way of doing things. It also makes it easier to move to from environment to environment. So my display name here, I'm just going to call this flow after processing. I'm going to select the publisher. Publisher is just going to be the default in this case, and we'll go create. So this will go ahead and create a new solution. And then inside here, what I do is I'll reach up to create a new flow. Now, something that needs to be addressed first is that if you are moving this to a new tenant, you are going to need to make sure that your libraries, your SharePoint library, is created in that new tenant. Now, of course, it's going to have different IDs, so you'll have to redo this and make some adjustments after you have moved it. So that's important to know when you are dealing with SharePoint sites and you're moving them from tenant to tenant. Anyway. So what I'll do here is I'm creating an automation. This is going to be a cloud flow. It's going to be an automated cloud flow. And this creates it directly in my solution. I don't have to add it. I don't have to do anything with it. So here, I'm just going to call this flow after Syntex, and I'm looking for a very specific trigger. I'm looking for Syntex, and that pulls up this trigger here. So when a file is classified by Microsoft Syntex, create that. And what that does is it creates a trigger very specifically for us that fires on the item after it has been processed by Syntex. This makes it very easy. I don't have to have a wait process or anything in there waiting for individual items. I don't have to look for individual metadata that gets populated, things like that. I can just fire it directly from this. So what I'm going to do is I'll go up here and grab the site URL. Just makes it easier for me. And let's get rid of that. So yes, I know it's required. So let's go into the enter a custom value here. I just like to paste that, makes it a little bit quicker for me. And I'll put the library name. And I do want to make sure that this part populates to make sure that my site was correct. So this one is called the med information form. I'll grab that for later. And there it is, med information forms. Okay, so if there's a specific folder in here, I can select that as well. Now, because this is Power Automate, if I want to make sure that certain metadata has populated, I can do anything I want here. I can take it and take a look at it and play around with it. So what I want to do is I'm just going to update an item. And that will pull up this particular action inside of Power Automate. So again, I'm going to have a site address. I'm going to have a list name. So even though I grabbed that, I am going to have to grab the URL again because I didn't have it before. So here we go, EDU Content Center. And we're going to drop that here, enter a custom value, put that in there. And what I was getting to is this list isn't going to populate here. You see we have two lists here, not the actual library. And what that means simply is that this is filtering by list, not library. It expects a list. even though you can do libraries in here. All I have to do is copy the title of the library, drop it in here with a custom value, and it will then see what I'm looking at here. So, yep, it downloads the content type. Getting the ID is elementary because it comes from our trigger, which is really, really nice. So all I do is right there. So the next thing I do is with my student last name, I am going to trim out that comma. And that is done with an expression. So if you're unfamiliar with expressions inside of Power Automate, they work very, very similarly to expressions within Excel. And this one is going to be, I'm just going to do a replace. So replace, I'll do a, and you can see here, it's going to give me some information about what I need to put in here. The first thing that it's going to want is the text that I'm going to replace. And how I get that is I'm going to do a little trick here. I'm going to put my cursor where I want that information to be, and then I'm going to go into dynamic content. You see this expression remains. And because that expression remains, I can go in here and I can find then the item that I'm looking for. And this is going to be student last name. There it is. And it puts the whole thing in there. So I don't have to worry about placing anything. It's ready for me. I don't have to type anything. It puts it right there. So that's very, very handy. Let's go to the end here. And what I'll do is I'll put in a comma. Now you realize that a comma is something that I want to string out. I want to extract out. So what I do is I put this with single ticks. So I have a single tick and a comma and a single tick. That means that it is the character comma that I'm looking for, not an actual comma. So now I'll put an actual comma, and it goes to the last thing. What do I want to replace this with? And I want to replace it with nothing. So I'm just going to put 2 ticks. I'll go OK, and it goes ahead and it puts in my my replacement. Now, what this means is that the only thing I'm going to replace, what some people get excited about the first time they take a look at this is, oh my gosh, it's going to replace all of these items with blanks and that kind of thing. And that's not what it's doing here. It's only going to replace information that we have put into it. Okay. So that is what we're doing here. And from here, I can save it, and I can do the flow checker. I'm all good on the flow checker, and I can't test this one. I might be able to test this one. Let's see it. I don't think it'll let me test it because I don't have a trigger that's gonna hit that. So we'll save it here and go to test. And yeah, I can manually do it. Awesome. So I can go ahead and test this, but I need then to have the trigger fire. So I need to perform the starting action. So I'll need to drop something in there. No, I'm not going to do that this time because I don't have a document to drop in. But anyway, you know what I can do? Let's do this. I'm going to grab this, and I am going to say classify and extract, and that will go ahead and kick that off for me again. So that's kind of fun. We'll see how long this will take, and maybe I will pause the recording at this time to see if this works. So as you can see, this flow did run, and it was successful. This is a Syntex thing, so you do know it takes some time to process after you've checked the box. So what you can see here is it was picked up when it was classified as a Syntex model. It did update the item, and you can see here as all this downloads here, the student last name was updated to Carter. The comma was removed. You can also see here that the other columns were not overwritten by nothing. They kept the same data that they had in before. So this is a good way to go in and just update a couple of different columns with Power Automate. If we go into the library itself, you can see here it is. Carter doesn't have the comma afterwards, and we successfully processed our data after our syntax. So again, I hope you found this video informational, and you do use this trigger with your syntax work. See you next time.